Chapter 3 is the longest chapter.
And chapter 12. Yeah. Go to page 22. And you're going to go to where it says Brokerage Defined. Now, for those of you that were here yesterday, chapter 2 was already a little bit easier to deal with, right? Because the terms were already familiar, right? Chapter 3, it becomes way easier because it's mainly repetition of 1 and 2, and we're just going to go in detail to certain things that were touched in chapter 1 and 2, okay? So it should be easier. Now, brokerage defined. What does it mean to broker something? It says that it's the business of bringing buyers and sellers together in the marketplace, right? So I have a buyer, I have a seller, and we're helping the negotiation. We're brokering the deal. In the real estate business, a broker is defined as a person who is licensed to assist others in real estate transactions and to receive compensation for those services. You already know that a real estate salesperson works on behalf of, the other way, on behalf of, and is licensed to work under the supervision of a broker. And you get paid by your sister, right? You get paid by your broker of record. Very good. Now, years ago in New Jersey and elsewhere, the principal, we're on page 22, the principal known as the client. So every time you see principal, think of client. Underline principal, underline client. Who employed the broker was almost always an owner who wished to sell the property. So back in the day, we represented sellers most of the times. That was it. Buyers did not use us to represent them. So it was mainly the sellers. That was the principal. So the real estate broker acted as a seller's agent and was usually compensated with a commission if a ready, willing, and able buyer, was procured. So if you're the one that brought the buyer, you get paid. In this traditional real estate transaction, in green, make sure you highlight, put stars, put bubbles. In this traditional real estate transaction, the seller was the client to whom specific duties were owed, and the buyer was the agent's customer, whom the agent must only treat fairly and honestly. Here's the thing. If you represent the client, then it's the client first, then you, then everybody else. You got it? In the real estate transaction, if you represent the client, so let's say you're seller, you represent the seller. Seller first, then you, then everybody else. Okay? So seller's interests are above your interests. Okay? Now, it says here, today, however, agency relationships have become more complex than under the old seller-based model. A prospective buyer or a person seeking property to rent can also be a principal and hire a broker to act as a buyer's broker or buyer's agent. So nowadays, a buyer would want to seek that kind of protection and be represented by a realtor as well. Okay? In this type of relationship, the buyer, I'll explain all this in a second. The buyer is the client to whom specific duties are owed, and the seller is the agent's customer, whom the agent must simply treat honestly. So this is what we're doing. If I represent the seller on this side, I represent the seller, then the seller is my client. Client, thank you. So if I represent the seller is my client. The buyer is my customer. I do not represent the buyer. I only represent the seller. What does this mean? The seller hired me. So I got to treat everybody else fairly and honestly. If you, I'm sorry? Salesperson. Salesperson. So the seller hired the broker because I represent the broker. as a agent. Okay, so every time you see broker and salesperson, it's pretty much the same. Because I'm an extension of the broker. Okay? But who made the negotiations? Salesperson, seller, on behalf of the broker. Okay? So this scenario, my broker and I represent the seller. My broker and I represent the seller. We do not represent the buyer. So think about it this way. If you're hired by your employer, let's say you work retail.
So I'm buying my house. I'm selling my house and you representing me.
Correct.
Okay.
My broker and I represent you.
Okay.
Okay? But we don't represent Ruth. Ruth is the buyer. So she's a customer. That's it.
So I come first and next and then.
Say it again?
So I come first.
Yes. In this scenario, you're first. Your interest is first. Then it's my interest. And sorry, you're left behind. Okay? Only in this scenario. So think about it this way. If you work in a cafe or a restaurant business or retail business, whatever kind of business, right, you have a boss. In my scenario, my boss is the seller, the client, okay? So she's my boss. If my boss says $500,000, no less, then I have to honor her wishes. Does that make sense? If you work in a restaurant, or let's say, actually, let's go to something more trivial. You work at a cell phone store, and somebody sees the new iPhone or the new Samsung and goes like, I want that phone. Like, great, a sale, right? But then that person goes like, I want that phone for $50. Now, you guys know how much a phone like this costs, right? $800, $900, $1,000, right? $50? No, I'll never sell it to you for $50, because then I'll get fired. Does that make sense? Who had, or 50 a month, that's what you'll say. Yeah, times 100 months, and then we're in business. So here's what happens. She's the one that hired me. Who do I have to represent? Whose interest? The cell phone store. The seller. I'm just a salesperson for the seller. Does this make sense so far? Customer comes in through the door, I gotta smile. I have to be polite and treat you fairly and honestly and tell you $50, no. In my mind, I'm thinking you're insane, but no, not gonna happen, I'm sorry. Does that make sense? With a nice smile. Okay? Now let's switch the roles. She hired me. She's the buyer. So, if I was hired by Ruth, the buyer, then she's my client principal. Right? And now, you're the seller, but I don't represent you. So who's she? Customer. I just got to smile at you. That's it. Okay? First interest is buyer, client. Do you guys understand? So write this somewhere. Whoever you represent is the client. Whoever you represent is the client.
Because that's how everything works.
I'm sorry?
Because that's how everything works. It's like I'm a credit analyst for a very down company, and I have to make sure that I'm making a customer happy, but then they need to
Exactly. That's it. You just got to make the customer happy. Smile. While keeping your employer happier. Make sense? So whoever you represent is your client. Whoever you don't represent, so the other party, is the customer. Client first. Customer last. Remember that.
I'm too much for that. Even with marriage, it's the same way.
I don't know about that one, but so nowadays it's very difficult to know about it. So look at this. There's another type of representation. It is also possible for a licensee to function as a transaction broker, working with a buyer, seller, or both, without representing, please underline this part, without representing either one, but functioning as the manager of the transaction. In this case, no agency relationship is created. What we're saying here is very simple. I don't represent you, the seller, and I don't represent you, the buyer. What I represent is the transaction. Meaning, you're not first, you're all last. The deal is first. Okay? So what I do when I enter into a transaction this way is reduce liability. Because if I represent the seller, then I'm liable to the seller. If I represent the buyer, then I'm liable to the buyer. If I represent the transaction, I pretty much don't owe anything to either one. I just want to make sure the transaction goes through. Okay? So no agency relationship is created. Nobody hired me. Yes?
Pretty much like a referee.
Yeah, you can think of it that way. You're still there balancing things out.
Or,
But-
so that's the deal.
Okay? Okay?
So
Now,
how you got there in the first place?
how did I get there in the first place?
Remember, I was born.
It's a black and white script.
Huh?
The referee. So, the same way as a seller, it's just, there's going to be a form, I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. There's a form that you must sign at the beginning of every transaction. And you have to explain, hey, as a seller's agent, this is what you can expect from me. If I represent both of you, this is what you can expect from me. If I represent none as a transaction broker, this is what you can expect from me. How do you choose? Does that make sense? So you give those options to the seller or to the buyer, and then things play out from there. So how do you get there? The same way as the being represented seller or represented buyer. It's just the options you give to your clients, or sorry, people you deal with, will differ based on who you're dealing with and what you expect from them. Now, creation of agency is determined not by who pays the commission, but in most cases by contractual agreement between the broker and the buyer or seller. First of all, what is agency? Agency is when you're hired by somebody. Employer-employee relationship. Employer-employee relationship. That's agency. So to create an agency, that means you're hired. What we're saying here, the creation of agency is not determined by who pays the commission. It's by who hired you, so by contractual agreement. To put this in simple terms, most of the times the seller already agreed to pay the commission for both sides. Okay, the seller, Melanie, you already agreed to pay commission for both sides. That means if we close, my broker gets paid, and my broker splits with the other broker. And you're paid for that. Okay? So if the other broker represents the buyer, right? Who's paying this broker? The seller is. But my relationship was with the buyer. Does this make sense? So just because the seller is paying doesn't mean the seller is my client. My client is whoever signed the deal with me that says, hey, you represent me. You're getting paid by somebody else, but you represent me. Robin? That's why you got to smile always. There you go. That's it. Just keep smiling because you're getting paid anyway. Big checks. Agency. Agency. The role of a broker falls, as the agent of his or her principal, is a fiduciary relationship that falls within the requirements of law of agency. A fiduciary relationship, please highlight, underline, put stars. A fiduciary relationship is one of trust and confidence, in which an agent is responsible for the money and or property of others. So every time you hear fiduciary, that means you entrusted me with your property and your money, right? Because if you're the seller, Melanie, if you're the seller, you entrusted me with your house and the money you're going to get for selling the house. Does that make sense? But guess what? If I represent the buyer, I also have a fiduciary relationship of the money that the buyer is going to spend and the property they're about to acquire. Does this make sense? So I have to represent my client in the best interest, whether it's acquiring or selling a property. So it says right here what I've been saying all along. Please highlight, underline, put stars. It requires putting the principal, so the client, bless you, principal's interest above all others, including your own. So there's a lot of agents out there that what they do is focus on commission. You should focus on your client. Because if you help your client close, you get paid your commission. So most of the deals, well, I cannot say it like that, but there's a lot of deals out there that fall through because the agent is thinking of money.
I mean,
I got it, but if you only think of money, that's what I'm trying to say. If you only think about the money, you lose track of what you need to do to get there. Does that make sense?
I think the money will motivate you to do what you're supposed to.
Doing the right thing and getting paid for it is what should motivate you.
Complete
See-
the needs of the,
Complete your needs.
no. I said complete the needs of your client for you to be able to complete.
Correct. Does this make sense? So it's not about the money. It's not about the money. And I'll put it this way. The more people I help, the more money I make. When I was focused on making money, I made none. I started focusing on helping people, I made way more because you know what? People refer people. I might lose with this client a little bit of money or a lot of money, but the referrals. I just closed on a deal before going to Portugal. 2 weeks ago, I closed on a deal. I made, I think it was roughly $10,000 on that deal. But I already got, in 2 weeks, I already got 3 referrals. And that client was a pain. Ooh, I'm recording.
This is a private Facebook, you said.
Yes.
So he's not gonna see it.
Well, they're thinking about taking the license. So one day, I'm sorry, guys.
They were just speaking.
I know.
They were just speaking.
So I'm like this. I'll tell them to their face. They actually apologize for being such a pain. But they love the service and they've been referring deals like crazy. So in 2 weeks, 3 referrals, not bad at all. I'll deal with clients like that all day long. Did I lose money? No. I gained a lot of money just because of referrals. Does this make sense? It's not about the money. The money is the,
Ethics.
I'm sorry?
It's about ethics.
Ethics.
Yeah.
So the ultimate goal is to get paid, but initially you have to help others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Types of agency. There's 3 different types of agency we're going to address. I'm going to just have you highlight and I'll explain in a little bit. It says universal agent has the authority to represent the principal in all matters that can be delegated. Go to the right hand side on top. He or she can enter into any contract on behalf of the principal without prior permission. So universal agent can enter into any contract on behalf of the principal without prior permission. I'll explain in a second. General agent is empowered to represent the principal in a broad range of matters. So general agent represents in a broad range of matters. The general agent may bind the principal to any contracts within the scope of his or her authority. And then we have special agent. Special agent is authorized to represent the principal in one specific capacity only. All right, so 3 types of agency, as you guys finish highlighting. Universal, full powers. I want you to write full powers. Full powers. What does that mean? It means that I don't have to have your permission in order to put you into a contract. Okay? I don't have to have permission in order to put you into a contract. I'm working on your best interest still, and it has to be in your best interest, otherwise I could get sued. But I don't need your permission. So think about it as parents. Raise your hand. Who's a parent? Okay, cool. So you got kids, and do you ask permission, especially when they're minors? You ask permission, hey, I'm thinking about moving to a different town. What do you think? You ask your kids?
No.
Especially when they're like a 1-year-old,
No. Not even.
right?
When you have words, kind of like look at you funny.
They look at you funny, right?
Yeah, it's kinda like, what?
And it doesn't matter how you look at me, we're still moving.
Right.
Because I think it's the best for you. Right? At least that's what I'll tell my kids. That's it. At the time, it was the best for you. Right? When it's really the best for us. But
Yeah.
for some reason, we think about them. So, full powers, I don't need your permission. I'm still going to do it, but it's in your best interest. So, do real estate agents get involved in this type of agency? No. Okay? Next, we have general agents. I want you to write some powers. So, universal, full powers. General agent, some powers. That means I can represent you and put you in a binding capacity or contract if our employment agreement allows me to. So we have the example of property managers. Property managers handle the property, right? The management, the leasing, all that stuff. But can a property manager sell the building without the owner's authorization?
No.
No. Does that make sense? So you don't have full powers, you have some powers as a general agent, like property managers. And the last one is a special agent. Guess who the special agents are? They're special, right? But guess who they are? We are. The salespeople, the brokers, we all special. Isn't that lovely? No, we are. Because we represent the seller or the buyer in one specific capacity only. Meaning, if the seller hires me, what did the seller hire me to do?
To sell,
Wrong.
to represent.
Ah,
To represent.
to represent and market the property. Because remember, we don't sell, we don't buy, we broker. We mediate. The seller sells, the buyer buys, we're the referee. We're in between. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they hire us to market the property, to find the buyer that will buy for them to sell, right? Once the property closes, the deal closes, what happens to our contract? It ends. No further dealings. See, property management keeps on going. Universal keeps on going.
And you keep it for 6 years?
What happened?
And you keep it for 6 years, right?
You gotta keep it for 6 years, permanent records, yes. But during the active contract ends at the time of closing, meaning I don't represent you anymore. We're done. It was a 6-month deal, we closed, we're done. Can I represent the seller in another property?
Yes.
Listen, I could be helping you sell 10 properties, but each property is its own special contract, its own special agreement. So if I helped you sell this property and it closed, we're done here.
Yeah, close.
But I'm still helping you with this one, and with this one, and with that one. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Special contracts, special agency, one specific capacity only. Got it? Good?
Yeah.
All right. Next we have power of attorney. Has anybody ever heard of power of attorney before? What does that mean, power of attorney?
The legal document that you have to get signed by someone who's authorized by the state to,
By the state? You're doing well. Take the state up.
okay. But they have to be authorized and you have to be present while they're putting this contract together, whatever they're signing.
Okay. You're close to it. Michelle?
It's the right somebody did.
The right somebody gave you, period. That's what it is. I said, Chris, can you represent me at the closing? So you're gonna sign a power of attorney that says, Bruno is authorized to enter into a legally binding contract on my behalf on this date for this property only. Power of attorney, simple. So it's the right or power that somebody gave you. You don't have to be present at the time the contract is being prepared, because they're just naming you. Does that make sense? But you gotta be present to act on their behalf with that form, with that power of attorney. Got
I'm
it?
just thinking of it in a different capacity, that's why.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Power of attorney is just, I gave you the right to be there for me, period. To act on my behalf, period. For that specific capacity, or specific time and place, period. So, with this being said, you'll probably forget, but I'll tell you right now, if you have a client that decides to go on vacation while you're waiting for a closing, and all of a sudden, hey, closing date is tomorrow, your client is out of the Bahamas, well, you should have a power of attorney before they leave. And make sure that power of attorney is not to you. Because you're already a salesperson, don't be the power of attorney as well. Because if something goes wrong, you lose on two ends. Okay, as an individual, power of attorney, and your license as a salesperson. Okay, so always tell your client, hey, you're about to go on vacation. Is there anybody that could represent you while you're out there? Make them have a power of attorney ready. Okay? What is the best way to do this? Talk to the attorney, to their attorney, and go like, hey, your client's about to leave. Get that power of attorney done.
If they have an attorney.
If they have one.
Yes.
Should they have one?
You know,
Should.
yeah, they should, but they don't have to.
Correct. Right? So if they have an attorney, get the power of attorney done. If they don't have an attorney, make sure you talk to your client. Again, building relationships is key, okay? There's some realtors out there, I love them, they're ninjas. You guys know what a ninja is?
Yes.
Right? Those guys that go like, poof, disappear.
I'm a ninja too.
You're a ninja too?
I'm a ninja too when I sit in the kitchen and raising the heat.
All right, you get there, get the cookies, disappear.
Yeah.
Good. So, that's cute. So ninjas, they disappear. That means they show up the first day to sign a contract and then disappear. Show up the last day for the closing, where's my check? Yeah, there's no closing because you haven't been around. All right? So don't be a ninja in that sense. Be a ninja as you master the art of real estate and helping others get to the closing. Okay, very, very important.
Like, can you have your, do a power of attorney even if, you know, they're not on notification, like this?
Yeah. You could,
Like at the very beginning.
you could, but why would you?
Just in case.
No, they will have to pay for that, right?
Well, to prepare, yeah, not to me,
So
to
they're
pay
not-
somebody,
No,
but.
no, no, of course, they have to pay somebody to prepare, so why?
But my question is, unless there's a need,
Yes, I was.
see if there's an emergency, if somebody like gets into an accident, dies or anything like that, right, then the attorney will have another way to handle it. But somebody going on vacation,
They should know that.
they should know ahead of time. Unless it's an emergency vacation, which you still have time from there to the airport, right? I'll pay extra, attorney, come with me as we get to the airport. Does that make sense?
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying.
No, not really.
No, we gotta have electronic signature now, so.
They got e-signatures, right? Yeah, that's it. All right, so you guys know, I don't know if you guys know this, but usually at the airports, there are services. There are attorneys in case of emergencies. Again, you'll pay more, but there they have it. Yeah,
That's good to know.
that'd be awesome, right? You're on the way, hey, go close, I'm out.
You can do it at any like FedEx office or anything like that, or even Staples.
Power of attorney, yeah, because all you need is a notary. The thing is, you're talking about power of attorney for a property. Do you really want to be drafted by somebody that has no experience? So when it comes to this, it's real estate. It's not a power of attorney like you can handle my bank account which has no money, but you can handle it while I'm out. Does that make sense? This is a purchase of a house.
Yeah.
Make sure it's attorney drafted, not anybody else, right? And then everything else is just being a notary. Any notaries here, by the way? Right? 2 notaries. If anybody needs anything notarized, right? Hello, my name is. All right. Next. You guys having fun so far? It's good? Yeah? Good. So, fiduciary responsibilities. What did I tell you fiduciary meant? Fiduciary relationship before we go forward? Trust and confidence. Cool. So, this confidential relationship carries with it certain duties that the agent must perform. Underline duties, underline must perform. And the first one is care. Then we have obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. The acronym is COLD. So when you represent somebody else, you got to have a COLD. What does it mean? What? Okay.
Why, don't you know
Yeah,
that?
already
Isn't that something that people should know? Why would something like that be an exam?
So there's something called common sense, and it's not as common. Got it? But I'm going to give you examples in a little bit how it could confuse you based on the questions. Okay? So it says right here, care. Let's start with that one. Before we move forward, who can tell me what it means to care?
Protect.
Anybody else?
To love?
To love? All right.
To take care of, help.
Okay, all right, cool. We'll stop right there. This was actually the fastest in all my classes. Usually I counted like 7 or 8. I was counting seconds here. 7 or 8 before anybody can tell me what it means to care. So, besides the 4 of you that answered, everybody else that's a parent, raise your hands. No, you can keep it down. Up, up,
Oh, who is not?
No.
No, he said who didn't have their hands up before.
Yeah, who did not answer before, but is a parent. Okay. So should I call DIFUS now, or not even call DIFUS? Because if you don't know what it means to care, like that, then we have a problem.
I had too many answers.
Uh-huh. So Melanie said protect, right? So protect your client's best interest, right? You said love? I don't know if I'm going to love my client like that, but
Why not? I'm making money.
I love you because I'm making money. All right, to love. We'll hold on to that. What did you say?
Put someone else's needs.
Someone else's needs and to help. Just to help, right? So to care, that means you care for that person so much that again is their interest above yours. If you got kids, we sacrifice the world for our kids, don't we?
Yeah.
All right? Simple. Now I'm not telling you to love them like you love your kids. Okay, Michelle?
It's different.
It is different.
No, it's different.
But yes, you got to care enough for your clients to protect them, to make sure you help, and
Hey, make them
put
feel
their needs first.
you are protecting their interests,
Mhm.
that you really care.
That's
So
what
they
needs to
could,
care. They
so
really
they,
care.
they could refer you, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. What does it mean to care, really? How do you care in real estate? So here's an example. An agent must exercise a reasonable degree of care and diligence while transacting business on behalf of the principal. Brokers and agents are expected, by virtue of their license, to have expertise in real estate matters greater than that possessed by the average person. As a result, they may be liable to the principal for any loss resulting from negligence or carelessness. Okay? So, with that being said, I have a question. This is my business card, by the way. Now, I want you to tell me, how long have I been a salesperson? 15 plus years, okay.
Doesn't say.
Maybe on the other side, because there's words.
They're little, very little.
They're very little, yeah. It's that disclaimer, right, at the
Yeah.
bottom. No, just go around, maybe you can see it.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say, you sure? No business card says it?
No.
So you cannot tell by my suit that I have experience?
No.
Or that
No?
you were chunkier when you took that picture.
Yeah.
See, that was the difference that I was seeing yesterday. There you go.
All right, so
5 years.
here's what I want to tell you guys. Thank you. Here's what I want to tell you guys. By virtue of your license, so you get licensed tomorrow, let's say your license goes active. What's the first thing you're going to do? Business cards, marketing, right? Now you guys know me, but if I go on the street and I introduce myself to somebody else and I give my business card, they don't know that I just got my license yesterday. Does this make sense? So all of a sudden they go, hey, you're a realtor. I've been meaning to buy a house. Can you help me? Because I got my license. Yeah, of course I can. Now I can. I'm going to help you, right? What experience do I have? Zero. But the fact that I'm licensed, I know more than the person that's hiring me. I have zero experience, but I know more. So I should care enough to say, you know what, I might lose money or not make as much money, right? But let me work with somebody with experience to help me help. Okay, this is not Jerry McGuire, this is to help the client. Okay? Help me, help the client, that's what it was. Does that make sense? So you should go and search for help. That's what it means to care. Of not wanting what comes to your pocket, Mr. Thomas. Okay? Is care enough that you're going to split your commission with somebody else just to make sure the deal goes through the proper way. Okay? That's a lot of care. But I'd rather make 25%, for instance, or 50% of it, than making zero. Yes.
But isn't that what your broker's for?
Yeah, but you make the split with your broker, but your broker might not be, like, so if the brokerage has 100 people, the broker's not going to be available 400 people at the same time, right? So maybe, and different agencies have different models, right? In ours, we have a team leader and all that stuff, but not all agencies do it. Usually the agencies are, hey, each one goes after its own deals, that's it. And don't come bother me because I'm busy. They're not doing anything, but since I'm not making money out of you, let me focus on my newspaper or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? Does that make sense? But it's the way it is. So usually there's not the traditional real estate companies don't have a tiered mentorship type of program. So you're on your own. I know an agency here in Newark that's how it is. Oh, your license is great. Go out there. Not even training. Go get your own training.
How does that work?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, you don't know anything, all you need to do.
That's your broker. Sorry. Okay?
That's why you're gonna hire somebody to help you.
That's why you should have somebody help you manage like a team leader, somebody that will help you. That's it. All right? So, the bottom line is that you should go after somebody with experience in the beginning to help you. In some agencies, you pay for that. You pay monthly to have that mentorship. There's a particular agency you pay like $1,000 for it. There's another agency, and I'm not naming this stuff because once you get out there, you have to compare. There's another agency out there that, hey, every deal you make, 50% is mine. While you're in my team, while you're a trainee, 50% is mine. Not the agency. Okay? So after the agency split, we split.
What?
Yeah.
What agency is that?
I'm just saying. Nah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It's a brand agency. Don't worry. Franchise.
But that's like with each closing, you have under
Mhm.
that person, right?
Each closing while you're in my team,
Yeah.
we get the split. So let's say 70-30. 30 stays with the brokerage. 70 is what you would get paid.
And then.
But because you're under my
35,
team,
35.
yep, 35.
So do like two.
Hmm?
Do like two and take notes. Yeah.
Right?
If it's a good team, yeah.
I'll put it like this. I just have somebody sign up with us. That person's already signed, already paid for business cards, already paid for personalized for sale card signs with her picture, right?
This is true.
It's a she. But, and she's working for a franchise company. But she's only leaving on Friday, as soon as she gets the closing and gets the check. But she already signed up. Okay? And the reason why she's doing this, I'm supposed to have a mentor. I'm paying for that mentorship. And she only showed up at the end to ask about the commission.
There go your mentor.
Great mentor, right? Okay, so it doesn't matter how big the company is, how small the company is. It's the teams you're building. And who cares about you? And she's bringing a few people from there.
You win.
Oh, I'm winning, yeah, big time. All right, and I'm not saying that we're the best or better. It's just we're different. We kind of
care.
care.
Because you
Are you
care.
kind of?
Kind of care, and they see the difference.
That's about what?
Our agents.
You make sure that,
We're losing a lot of money with our company. My main goal is not the real estate company. It is growing the investment and the funding company. So we prefer to lose a little bit here on the realty side of it, but gain on another side. What I was saying before, we lose to gain. So all our funds are going into the school, into the office, and we give the splits to the agents. You should know that. Come on. You've known me for a very long time. Okay, we care.
Edit that out.
Yeah, so Tasia said. So breach of duty of care. Breach of duty of care. You made a mistake, right? So what are the consequences? Let's figure out how you can make mistakes in caring. It says here, the duty of care requires the seller's agent to, among other things, be knowledgeable about all aspects of the property to arrive at a reasonable listing price. Discover and investigate material facts and try to negotiate the highest possible sales price, meet deadlines and closing dates, and advise the seller on ways to effect the sale. Failure to be properly informed about a property's condition and value, and to effectively navigate the transaction through to closing constitutes a breach of duty of care. So, question. Who has a gym membership? Gym membership, all right? Keep your hand up, wait, keep your hand up if you actually go to the gym. Okay, yeah, because you can have a membership and not go. Cool. So out of you, keep your hand up. Who has a personal trainer?
I have
One? You had one? What happened?
I already have one.
Oh, you have one.
I did that already.
So 3.
It's done. I used to have one, and I did all mine.
Now you're done.
Yeah, I'm done with it.
You're divorced, okay.
With
Uh,
a training,
Mhm.
trainer.
Okay, sure. I didn't say you were divorced. I said you divorced your trainer. People get offended, jeez. All right, so 3 of you. Why do you have a personal trainer?
Because if I don't, I will not go.
Okay, so motivation,
Yes,
accountability.
yes, I
Cool.
need the accountability.
Cool. Why do you have a personal trainer?
to get ripped.
To get ripped?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this?
I'm like,
No, I'm just messing with you. Listen, my brother is 6'7", skinny, goes to the gym, has a personal trainer, and there's nothing he can do. He still looks skinny. He's tall as hell.
He's not doing the job.
We try to push him down, but like, doesn't work. All right, so, I'm sorry, so just get ripped, that was it?
yeah. That's,
And you don't think you can do it on your own?
no, I think I need someone to push me.
Okay, so accountability as well? Okay, motivation? Why? Cool.
I don't have one.
You don't have one?
I just go through my own day.
Okay. So let me explain something to you guys. Both of you have realtors. The rest of you are for sale by owners. Here's what happens with for sale by owners at the gym. You do one thing wrong and you damage your back. Does that make sense? I'm not saying that with the realtors, with the personal trainers, you guys are not going to damage your backs. What I'm saying is now you have somebody looking for you and looking at your form and making sure you don't screw up, but also making sure you reach your goal. Does that make sense?
Take pictures of my food too.
Take pictures of your food. If you do like my partner, he takes, business partner by the way, he takes pictures of the food for the next day. He doesn't take pictures of the food he's actually eating.
Because that's just, you're cheating yourself out of that.
Wow.
And that's what I was going to say. Personal trainers do tell you what you should do. Guess what we are? We are personal trainers in the real estate world. I'm going to tell my client, Mr. Seller, we should have a property inspection before we list the property. We should have an appraisal done before we list the property. Why? Because we want to make sure there's no contingencies or anything that could stop us from selling the property. Because the worst thing that can happen is 3 months down the line, we're ready to close and oops, a surprise. There's a tank or structural damage or whatever. So, or the roof, there's no roof. Nobody noticed, there's no roof. So my point is, realtors, our job as personal trainers in the real estate world is to grab the seller or the buyer by the hand and walk them through effectively to make sure they don't damage the transaction. Okay? So it's the same thing. You're supposed to be knowledgeable about everything and walk them through. If you don't know, what are you supposed to do? It says right here. At the bottom, the last paragraph says, the rookie residential agent, rookie, got no experience, confronted with an opportunity to list a shopping plaza, should probably approach an experienced commercial broker with a request that they work together to list and sell the property. Otherwise, the duty of observing an appropriate standard of care may be breached by an inexperienced agent. So you could get sued, right? You could lose money. You could have the license revoked depending on what you're doing, right? Suspended, probation, all that stuff, right? So make sure you work with others to help you help somebody, okay? Good so far? All right. Obedience. Now here's the thing. obedience. You have to obey your client's instructions. But do you have to obey all of them? No. Only lawful instructions. Now I'll give you a quick example, and you guys can just highlight as we go. I'll give you a quick example. It says right here, if I'm telling you 24-hour notice for showing, that means that if somebody calls you today, you're only showing tomorrow. Right? Why am I the seller asking my realtor to do that? Why should I ask the realtor, hey, make sure everybody understands they call you today to show tomorrow? Why? To prepare. It's the same thing if you go to a car dealer and there's two cars, very similar. One is shiny, the other one is dusty. Nobody took care of it. Which one are you going to buy? The shiny one, right? Does that make sense? But if you get into a house that's all dirty, clothes all over the floor, because you don't know how they left this morning, right? I haven't been home yet, so you don't know how my house is. You get back to the house and all of a sudden here's the realtor already at the door with the buyer. I don't have enough time to clean up. So when they get into my house, they're not looking at the benefits of the house. They're looking at everything that's in the way. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So make sure it's clean, make sure it's shiny. So they can buy for the highest value as well. Not the poor, damaged value. Okay? Good? Okay, so that's a few examples there. You can highlight. Oh, very important actually. This right here. All contracts must be accompanied. Make sure you put stars next to that. Not because of the state exam, but because you should require this every time. All contracts must be accompanied by a pre-approved mortgage letter. That means your buyer has the ability to buy. All right? Concept is very simple because a lot of people will dispute you on this. There's going to be buyers that say, hey, show me the houses, then I'll show you the money. Like, okay, you go to the restaurant and you see the menu, right? Don't you check to make sure you have enough money in your wallet to pay for it? All right, so before you go there, you should know if you have the money. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe? Make sure you have the money to go to the restaurant. Make sure you're approved or have money in the bank to go buy a house. Once you do that, I'll show you the menu. Until then, can't work with you. Sorry. All right? It's a waste of your time, not mine. Okay, remember, so this is sales 101, psychology and all that stuff. It's always your client's time that's being wasted. So if somebody approaches you, no, but show me houses. Like, listen, the speech is a little bit different, but so you understand what it is. Listen, we're going to be wasting your time. We're going to see a bunch of houses, and then there's something in your tax returns that you don't know about. Just a simple checkbox that could reduce the amount of money that you're approved for. Or maybe it's your paycheck. Maybe your paycheck, like especially police officers, for instance, they have a fee for uniforms and stuff like that, right? When it goes on your taxes, there's a refund for that, or unrefunded, depending on the type of union that you have. Does it make sense? So if that's an expense, then what's your true salary? Is it what you got gross? No, something else. Does that make sense? So just a checkbox, just a simple number could change everything. So let's make sure that you're pre-approved according to your current conditions. And then I'll show you houses. Does this make sense? Yes? No? Maybe? Got a question? No? Okay, cool. So always pre-approved. It's either cash in the bank, so show me the money, or a pre-approved letter. Now, do we have to obey all the orders? No. Only lawful instructions. So if the seller says, please do not show properties to people that are green. Do we want to show properties to green people?
Yes.
Racist against the Martians? No. Green people. Don't they have money as well? Right? So if they got money, why are you looking at a color? Simple. What about if they're from the flower religion? They worship flowers. Don't show it because they're not from my religion. I don't want anybody from a different religion to come see my property. True stories, by the way. Not the flower religion, but true stories. There's people that will not show the house because you're from a different color, different religion, different race, all that stuff, which is ridiculous because money is money.
There's like small.
Plus, you're leaving. Right? Small towns?
There's certain towns that they don't like certain.
Oh, Clark, towns, yeah, they're different.
You just said it,
Everyone sees
yeah,
age
they have like.
so.
By age?
Yeah.
Yep. So, listen, the thing is, like I said, money is money.
It's green.
It's green. So yeah, show it to the green people, the orange people, it doesn't matter. As long as the money's green, you're good. Okay? So at this point, if the seller expresses something like that that says, don't show it to these type of people, well, I can't work with you. Cannot work with you.
Okay.
This is discrimination. Can't work with you. Okay? Next, accounting. The agent is obligated to safeguard and account for all money or property entrusted to his or her professional care. We talked about this before, right? When Chris lost the money in Atlantic City? It's accounting. Here's another thing at the end of that paragraph. It says, an agent may not make any secret profit. What is secret profit?
Money that
Like
The deal that you.
Okay.
what you said about the sister.
I didn't say anything.
No, you said about he didn't want to put it on the market because his sister gonna want to,
Nope, nope.
no, like under the table.
Boom. Under the table.
Cat.
The cat?
No cash.
Cat.
I was about to say the cat.
That's what I was trying to say. Like she won $5,000, but like she would ask for some money, but not like.
Oh, but that has nothing to do with the transaction. That's just because I know you made money, I want more money.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I thought she would ask him like under the table.
No. It's just, if I know you won money in a scratch off, it's not real estate transaction. I just know you made money. I'm gonna ask you, hey, can I borrow?
Oh.
That's what it was. All right, so under the table, over the table, on the side of the table, it doesn't matter. What matters is if it's not disclosed at closing, in the documents from the closing, then it's considered secret profits, or the terminology under the table, right? So, can we make money that's not disclosed at closing? No. Can we make extra money as long as it's disclosed at closing?
Yes.
Yeah, bonuses, tips. Yeah, sure. If my service was that good, would you consider giving me $5,000 bonus? Why not? 6-7% commission plus a bonus. Why not?
And how you made that?
Hmm?
How you made that?
You ask. You ask.
This is my really act.
In every yeah, I do. In every transaction, when I go list, they try to negotiate because it's a negotiation, right? I start at 10%. I'll list your property for 10%. Because that's how much I'm worth. 10%, right? And then they go like, oh, but everybody else does 5 or 6. Well, go with everybody else then. No, but I really want to work with you. Okay, great. Then I'll compromise. Let's lower my commission a little bit. We'll lower it to 7%. But if I meet all your expectations, would you consider giving me a $5,000 bonus? Simple question. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Huh?
like the people in the on the airport.
I never get 10%, by the way. If you get 10%, let me know how.
Because you go down low, like, not.
Listen, I'm trying to do a short negotiation here because we're in class, but yeah. The point was, can I get a bonus?
Yes.
Would you say airport?
So you like the people in the airport when your bag is over the weight, they didn't like, oh, we just make tip. Will you give me a tip if I pass it those 2 pounds?
Really?
Yeah.
Usually I get it through for free.
No, they charge me.
You gotta smile more. I stretch the smile.
I do. That doesn't work.
All right. So, what was I saying? So bonus. And if you represent the buyer, it's the same thing. See, the seller already agreed to pay. but there's not enough commission for you, talk to your buyer. If I get the house at the price that you're looking for, and it meets all my service meets all your expectations, would you consider giving me a $5,000 bonus? Now, I'm throwing numbers out there, right? Because every time I put 5,000, there's two things that could happen. Well, three things that could happen. One is no, and it's okay, because I was just throwing it out there and see if it's stuck, right? So no. Two is they reduce, instead of 5, let me give you 3,500. Is that okay? Sure. And we're gonna cry a little bit, but yeah, sure. All right, an extra 3,500. And the other option is they give you the full 5 or even more. It could happen. But how would you know if you don't ask?
Yeah.
So be polite, smile, and 5,000, please. Okay? As long as it's disclosed at the closing table, it's okay.
Okay, so it has to be in the paper.
Yes. Not under the table. Nope.
That's what I was asking.
Not in the
how
bag,
you
that
get
they're-
it legal, like how you get it. That's what I meant with that question, but you went like,
Gotcha. So you ask and put it on paper
okay.
that you're getting paid an extra amount of money.
So he has to commit to that.
Yep.
Do you have to divide that with the broker?
So that's between you and your broker.
Okay.
The bonus?
That's
But that's not negotiable? Yeah, some of
Some
them are.
restaurants take a split from the tips. What do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Some restaurants take split from the tips.
But only when,
Negotiate with your broker.
Yeah.
Don't, hey, it's not me. Relax. All right, breach of duty of accounting. Listen, I just gave you an extra 5,000. You still complaining? Jeez. All right.
that's all I have to say.
Every brokerage is different.
Right.
All right. Breach of duty of accounting, any money received from a client that is held in trust for a client must be scrupulously accounted for, and handling of earnest money deposits set forth in New Jersey license law, rules, and regulations. So previous chapter, you said you got 5 business days to deposit the money, right? Loyalty, so you got the last 5 minutes. Let's do this. Loyalty. What does it mean to be loyal?
Not
Commit,
betray,
yeah.
to not betray.
Commit to
To
your.
not betray. All right.
Commit.
Says the 17-year-old. What happened to the rest? Who's married? Raise your hand.
Commit to.
Wait, Melanie.
Huh? Sorry.
Are you married? Raise your hand. Who's dating? Raise your hand. All right, and that's why you don't betray. That's cute. Cool. So
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, for real?
that's not what I meant.
Yes,
Wait,
you
wait.
did.
No. What I meant is he was the first one to answer. He was the first one to answer. 7 seconds to answer what it means to be loyal, married people. Okay? That's what I meant.
Commit.
Good, yeah. Funny.
Okay.
Jesus. Anyway, so an agent must always place the principal's interests above those of other persons, including the agent's own interests. For instance, an agent cannot disclose such information as the principal's financial condition. An agent also cannot disclose any confidential facts that might harm the principal's bargaining position. So yesterday I gave you an example of an unlicensed assistant saying, oh, they're going through a divorce. Why? Because it affects the bargaining position. If the seller is selling because of a divorce, is the value the same? No, because we're going to lowball on that offer. Does that make sense?
We're gonna go
So-
on?
We're going to offer less, way less, because you need the divorce. All right? Does that make sense? Cool. So loyalty, be loyal to your client. Do not disclose anything that could affect them. But some agents, hey, listen, they're going through a divorce. Anything you offer right now, as long as we close, we're good. Some agents really don't care. They just want the money. Okay? Okay, here. There's 2 minutes left. We have to end loyalty right here, Michelle. Gotta end it. Breach of duty of loyalty. It says, because the agent may not advance his or her interest at the expense of the principals, any attempt to profit from a transaction, except through an agreed-on commission, signals a situation in which loyalty might be breached. So also money under the table. Profiting from a client's misfortune is forbidden. Very important that you guys know that. It is, right? And tomorrow we'll go into disclosure. Okay?